I'm your friendly neighborhood Web-Warrior Fanatic, and Fantasy Flight Games just dropped a new live stream, and they previewed a bunch of new cards from the Fear No Evil wave. So you guys know we gotta do a news recap going over all the new news that they dropped here. So please go, support Fantasy Flight Games in our live stream. I will put the link to the original video in the description of this video you guys want to see, but this will just be a more condensed, like short recap version of their video here. If you guys appreciate my consistent Marvel Champions content, please consider subscribing and liking the video. It really helps the channel out. Let's go ahead and get into it here. So the first big news that we learned here from Olivia, Tony, and Aaron is that there will be promo cards for this Fear No Evil wave. They didn't really go into exactly what the promos would be, and they didn't like tease us like with the arts or anything, so I'm not sure what it's exactly going to be, but it didn't mention that it's going to be something a little bit different, so maybe it won't be like, hero, like alternate arts, even though I really enjoyed those. And it did say that if you aren't able to attend Gen Con where you can get the promos, they will put like print and play versions like online for people to be able to print those out and have access to them. But yeah, we don't really know exactly the details about them. We just know that there will be promos in some form for this Fear No Evil wave. Tony also told us about how for this Defenders wave, Daredevil will be an identity-specific ally for 2 heroes, and he didn't mention exactly which heroes they were. We already know that Echo has Daredevil as her identity-specific ally, and Tony said that we can probably guess who has it, so it's not going to be a shock factor. I'm pretty sure it's going to be Elektra having another identity-specific Daredevil ally in her kit whenever her hero pack is finally announced, in a few months or weeks. So whenever we get Elektra, Tony's basically kind of like hinting to us that she's gonna have Daredevil as her identity-specific ally, as how Daredevil has Elektra as his identity-specific ally, which has been confirmed. Okay, so let's get into the juicy stuff here with the card reviews. So they dropped 3 new aspect cards right here. We've already seen the innate reflexes, which does come from the Echo Precon deck in the Fear No Evil expansion. So these 3 cards right here, we don't know exactly which hero packs they will be coming in, because it could also be in like the backup pack cards or in the actual aspect. But we got the aggression, justice, and leadership version of innate reflexes, which is the protection version. So the first thing to know about these cards is that they all have the starting word right here: starting, 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 starting. And if you guys don't know how that works, it basically adds consistency for your deck, so you can add this card to your hand before drawing your initial starting hand for your mulligan. So you can mulligan the card away, but you basically get to look through your deck and add this card straight to your hand before drawing up that initial mulligan at the beginning of every single Marvel Champions game. One thing to note with that, with this word, is that you only have one starting card per deck. So if you're playing like a hero that can have multiple aspects, you can't include all these starting cards. You only have one of them in your deck. And if you're playing like protection, for example, if you have the innate reflexes, you can't have 3 copies of this card, even though it's not unique, because you only have one copy of a starting card. Like any starting card, only one in your deck to help balance that out. And also, all these cards here do not have a printed resource icon, so you can never spend this card as a resource. In Marvel Champions, every card, most cards, I guess, have a printed resource icon that you can either pitch as a resource or actually play the card itself. So these cards here, you can only play them, which is a type of like balancing factor, which I really like for these cards. So we already saw in a Reflex, which is a 1-cost upgrade you can add straight to your hand, and your hero gets +1 defense. This card, in my opinion, is great because a lot of heroes playing protection really want to build out their defense and have a whole deck predicate around having high defense. So getting that guaranteed on turn 1, you can combine something like armor vest later on when you draw it, but this will really help you out to help you like defend attacks, take less damage, and proc all your other stuff that works with having high defense. So this is a really good card for protection to get out of here. We now got one in every single aspect. So innate aggression is the aggression variant. Just instead of having +1 defense, you get +1 attack, and it's 2-cost upgrade because the attack stat is higher value than defense stat. For the thwarting one here, same thing, just +1 thwart. And the leadership one is each ally you control gets +1 hit point. So that's basically team training, but you can get it on turn 1 through the innate inspiration right here, which is also really unique. Let's first talk about the plus attack one and the plus thwarting one. So I think that right off the bat, I think the innate perception is probably going to be the best one because, especially if you're playing true solo, a lot of side schemes come with 3 per player threat, and players' side schemes usually have that, 3 per player threat as well. So if you're playing a 2-thwart hero, you can basically get this card on turn 1, play it, and already have 3 thwart to start out the game. And the main thing that I thought about whenever I saw this card was, guys, Cable is going to be insane to basically guarantee getting heroic intuition, the 2 cost upgrade in the core set that gives you +1 thwart, to have that every single game on turn one and to guarantee getting whatever player setting that you want, and to be able to throw it out on turn one because it's capable. He has that 3 thwart. If you're playing true solo against those 3 per player threat side schemes, that is massive. Yeah, a lot of heroes really, really appreciate this card because of that initial thwart bumping you up to 3 thwart. That 3 thwart stat line is like very elusive and very, very powerful, especially in true solo. But even at higher player counts, being able to thwart multiple times with that +1 thwart from turn one, if you can play this card, that's really good. So I mean, this card is like my number one for like whenever I see these cards, like the card that gives you the most value from starting with it, right? I think that this is also really good, the +1 defense one. The innate aggression is obviously, still good for decks that build around, having, bonus to your attack stat. However, the thing with this is that you usually don't really care about having really high attack at the beginning of the game. Usually I'm fine building out my attack like throughout the course of the game as I'm worrying about threats, defending, stuff like that. So if I am building a deck with a hero that needs very high attack for the deck to work, like a combo deck with, having a high attack stat, I don't mind not having on turn one. So I think that this card, coming with the starting, word right there for you to have it on turn one, it's still good, but it's not as good as I think innate reflex and innate perception, which really helps those decks that want the extra thwart or the extra defense, on that first turn. But still a great card to have for aggression players that want that, really quick attack, right for you, on turn one. And I found we got the innate inspiration. I don't really see the synergy with this card, like having it on turn one either. But I think you can get a lot of value from the allies the earlier that you get this card out. So definitely, for me, Team Train isn't a card that I usually play in that first deck pass. I'm more focused around getting my allies actually out and having them do stuff like, throw for me, attack for me, defend for me, and stuff like that first. And then once I have enough breathing room, then I can spend actual, 2 costs to play this card. So I don't think this card is that great either to have on turn one, but I mean, they're still really good cards. And the craziest thing about them is that they stack with their original versions. And I think that's where it goes really crazy, because you can stack innate aggression with your combat training and your aggressive conditioning to get +3 attack just from the aggression aspect. So now basically any hero, even if you have like a 1 base attack stat, you can go up to a 4 attack hero, which is insane. Same of course for thwarting one, and then for the leadership one, team training is max 1 per player. So getting this out in addition to team training gives every single ally +2 hit points. And I think that may be the true value of a card like this, because imagine every single ally having +2 hit points. That is entirely insane. And if you combine this with like, if you're playing like an X-Men deck with Uncanny X-Men, which gives all your X-Men allies +1 hit point, then every single ally, if they're all X-Men, gets +3 hit points, which, I mean, yeah, I think that you can really make some really cool combos if you combine these cards with those legacy environment cards. But yeah, they previewed all these cards for us here in that live stream, and I think that this is like the craziest thing here. We got 3 new card reviews just from the live stream alone, and yeah, really big and important cards. Okay, next let's take a look at, they also gave us Jessica Jones, her hero, her entire Nemesis set, which is going to be purple man here, Kilgrave. So yeah, let's take a look at her Nemesis set. So these are the 5 cards in Nemesis set. And the first card I actually want to look at is Suggestion right here. So one thing that we talk about Jessica Jones is that I think that she needs a really difficult Nemesis set because she's such a powerful hero. And she's got that right here. I think this is a pretty formidable type of Nemesis minion and Nemesis set. And the main card I think that's really tough is going to be these suggestion obligations. So when you get an obligation, it just stays in play in your play area. And each one of these have a different like icon on it, but they're essentially the same like wording here, right? And they all come in play with uses and 3 pheromone counters. And whenever you get rid of all counters, then the card will get discarded. And the way they encapsulate like how Kilgrave works, it's so thematic. If you guys don't know like Kilgrave's power, basically he can tell you things and you have to like obey him, right? So he'll tell you like walk over there, then you walk over there. He'll tell you like protect me with your life, and then you like protect him with your life. So these cards right here, they stay in your play area, and it's a force action. So it's a callback to this new, wording here called force actions from the Trickster Takeover scenario pack. And basically, it's an action that you must do before the player phase ends. So it's just an action that you can trigger, same as your other actions, but you have to do it before the player phase ends. So as a forced action, you can exhaust this card and remove one of the pheromone counters from it. Then you choose to either play a card that has a printed energy resource icon, paying its cost like as normal, or add 2 threat to the main scheme. That's so cool. It really feels like Kilgrave is manipulating how you're playing and forcing you to do what you don't want to do, right? What if you don't want to add two threat on the main scheme? And what if you don't want to actually play any cards with the printed energy icon, right? Like that turn, what if you want to play like your Thwart event, which is, let's say, like, I don't know, a printed mental resource icon? Well, you can't because you have to do this, or else you got to add two threats to the main scheme, which maybe you don't want to do that anyways, right? So it's kind of forcing you to do one thing or other, and you have to do it because it's a forced action. So when you get this card, basically for the next 3 turns, you have to exhaust and do this, which is terrible if this is stacked with like all these other cards, right? Actually, I guess if they're stacked, they're not as bad. Except you'll probably be adding a lot of threat because you won't be able to play like an energy, a mental, and a physical. And in case, yeah, so basically these cards, each one of the different icons is what you have to do, like for that, the type of card that you have to play, if you get the other one out, right? So if you have like an energy and a mental one, basically if that's in your player, you have to play both an energy and a mental card before your turn ends, or you have to add 2 threats to the main scheme for each one that you don't do because it's a forced action that you have to do. So I just love the design of this card. I think it's really fun, I think it's really unique, and I think it's pretty challenging, and I think it's thematic. So this is a really cool card that I'm really excited to see here for Kilgrave. And it makes his Nemesis set, or the Jessica Jones Nemesis set a lot more interesting. One really cool thing that I was thinking about when I first saw this card is that force actions are actions that you can do in a player phase. And if you're playing multiplayer, like 2 players or higher, you can actually trigger actions out of turn, which could actually be a cool way to play like traditionally non-action cards during another player's turn. So like, for example, if you have like an ally, like the Nick Fury basic ally from the core set, you only play allies during your own turn. So if like, Nick Fury is a printed mental resource, so you have this printed suggestion, which is a mental resource, you can actually, during your like friend's turn who you're playing with, if for whatever reason you guys need to get Nick Fury out, to do like 4 damage during your turn, you can actually trigger the force action, exhaust a card, remove pheromone counter, and you can play a card that has that, printed mental if you have the mental obligation, and play an ally out of turn during your friend's turn to help them out or like help out the situation on the board, which I think can be really cool. So actually this can actually help the player, but I will say I think most of the time it's gonna hurt you more than help you, and it can really only help you in multiplayer in a very specific situation where you want to play a card that's not an event that you can't play out of turn, and it will be really helpful for you to play that card out of turn, right? Like a player's side scheme, like an upgrade, a support, or like an ally. If you need to play those out of turn, and they are that corresponding printed icon, and you have that obligation out. So all these requirements must be met. But if you get that out, you can play ally, out of turn, and it can actually be really cool and benefit the players as a team, which I think will be really fun. So yeah, this is a really cool card that I really like. And then we have Purple Man himself here. He is a minion. He's not elite. He's psionic, and he has 6 printed hit points here. Purple Man's scheme is equal to the highest scheme or thwart among characters in play. His attack is equal to the highest attack amongst characters in play. So basically, he's just copying his scheme and his attack stat to whatever the highest is, of whatever the characters are in play. And one thing to note here is that it's not base. So if you're playing like, I don't know, Jessica Jones, and then like you build her Thor stat to be like 5, then Purple Man's Thor stat is also gonna, or his scheming stat, I mean, it's also gonna be 5, correlating that. One thing to know that is that if you are an Arc Eagle, you don't have a Thor stat or attack stat, so Purple Man will not be able to copy your hero stat. So it'll scan the rusted area, it'll scan like the villain, minions, other identities or allies, and see what the next highest, Thor stat is if you're in a form where you don't actually have a Thor stat. So that's one nice thing, is that if you're Jessica Jones, you can flip down, and Purple Man won't scheme with your like crazy Thor stat if you do build out your Thor stat. But I think it's really cool because he's using other players or other characters to do things for him, right? Because he's telling you, hey, beat up that guy over there. Hey, we're gonna scheme, add some threat to the main scheme. So since he's directing that, I think it's cool that he's copying the highest stat of like the highest character, because obviously he wants to command that strongest character with like either the most smarts to like steal their thwarting stat / gaming stat, or like the highest attack to copy that. So, or to have that character attack, I mean. So yeah, very, very cool. Just such a thematic design here. And then we also have the side scheme here, Indomitable Will. It's a side scheme comes when hindered 3 per player, and comes in with 2 initial threat. So basically it's going to have 5 threat if you're playing in true solo, and it could go up to like 8 if you're doing 2 players, and so on. So a very, very high threat side scheme, but Jessica Jones has high thwart, so it makes sense that she has such a high threat side scheme in true solo. When reviewed, you place 2 pheromone counters on each suggestion, obligation, and play. So we really want to try to get rid of these and not have them in play whenever the side team comes in. But as a force response, after a suggestion obligation enters play, you place 2 additional pheromone counters on it. So yeah, pretty rough. It doesn't do anything by itself, which is like kind of nice, but at the same time, it makes these terrible. And I love it when a high like threat side scheme doesn't do anything by itself, but it's still kind of something you want to get rid of, soon, because it could make other stuff way worse for you. So instead of these cards coming in with 3 pheromone counters, they'll come with 5 if you have the side scheme R in place. So yeah, good synergy with Kilgrave's whole mechanics synergizing with each other. And yeah, basically Tony and Aaron and developers did say in the live stream that they wanted these Nemesis minions, if they are matching a villain, like, we do know that we have a Kilgrave villain from the actual Fear and Evil expansion, that these cards right here, the non-minion card, will actually synergize with the scenario. So I'm really excited to see how these cards will interact with the scenario, and I think it's going to be really cool and tons of fun. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it based on this design right here. He looks super thematic, super challenging, super fun, and yeah, it looks awesome, guys. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about this Nemesis set, but definitely one of the coolest Nemesis sets that I've seen in a while. I think it's just so thematic. And then next, let's hop back over to the live stream here, and this show us the remaining Luke Cage card. It is an upgrade, and we know he's going to have 2 copies of this card. It's called Cruisin' for a Bruisin', and it's a 0-cost upgrade that you attach to a minion, max 1 per minion, and attacks against the attached minion, deals 2 additional damage and gains overkill. So a better way for Luke Cage to like deal with minions, and as a response, after you play this card, you engage the attached minion. So this will only really apply in multiplayer, right? Basically, if you are playing with 2 heroes and there's a minion engaged with the other hero, if you're Luke Cage and you play the Cruisin' for a Bruisin', you'll like grab that minion and engage it with yourself. It would be really cool if this is like an aspect card. There are aspect cards in aggression like this where like it can help, minion slayers like Thor engage minions from other players. But yeah, Luke will grab that minion and engage it with himself, which I think works really well with his kit to have the minions engage with him, because we're on Hall of Heroes here, and we saw the Metal Bracer, which is a great minion controlling type of card. It's a 1-cost upgrade where Luke gains Retaliate 1, and as a hero interrupt, when any amount of damage will be dealt to Luke Cage, you can exhaust it to reduce the damage by 1. So this is a great way for Luke Cage to be engaged with like a minion that has like 1 hit point, like a weaker minion, and it will never break his toughs, because you can reduce that damage by 1 before you take damage. And the way that a tough status card works in Marvel Champions is that you lose your tough whenever you would take damage. So you can if you can prevent the damage that is dealt, then you will never lose a tough. So it's a great way for him to just engage him and then like have it not do damage to you with the Metal Bracers, which you also got 2 copies of. And just, yeah, cool card to keep the minion in play until you have a chance to take it out, and you gain overkill whenever you're timing the minion and deals 2 additional damage. So yeah, I think that the coolest combo you can do with Luke Cage with a card like this is if you have 2 copies of them, you put them on like 2 different minions, right? So then attacks against the attached minion deals 2 additional damage and gains overkill. Then if you have a Sweet Christmas right here, it is an attack event right here, action attack, deal 5 damage to the villain and each minion engaged with you. Now, I'm not 100% sure how the interaction with this card works, but it looks like, if you have those 2 minions that have, that will take 2 additional damage, then I believe you should be able to do 7 and 7 to those minions and 5 to the villain. So it's going to do 14, well, the 7/7 will have overkill. So let's say the minions all have like 1 hit point left. So you use 6 overkill on this minion, 6 overkill on other minion, and then you still do 5 to the villain. So that's like 12 plus 5, 17 damage with 1 attack event. And you can also reduce the cost to place attack event for each tough on Luke. So it could be a 0-cost attack event if you have 5 tough status cards. So that could be a really cool like game-ending combo for Luke Cage to just like Sweet Christmas out the villain there. I'm not exactly sure if the damage from this will multiply, like if it makes the entire event do 2 additional damage. So yeah, for any rules experts, please let me know down in comments if this will actually make it do like, if 1 copy of this makes you do 7 to the villain and 7 to each minion, or if it only increases the damage dealt to just that minion, not like the whole entire attack event, because I think that'd be pretty crazy if it's the whole entire attack event, right? Like, let's just calculate that really quickly. So if Cruisin' for a Bruisin' increase the whole entire attack event's damage by 2, and you have 2 copies of them on there, that means each instant will do 4 damage. So instead of doing 5 to the villain and each minion engaged with you, it does 9 to the villain and each minion engaged with you with overkill, right? with overkill. So I mean, if both minions have like one hit point left, you could be doing 8 plus 9, which is 25 damage. That looks really cool. So yeah, if that's a way to set up Luke for like a crazy burst turn, I'm all for it. I think that would be really fun, really cool. So yeah, this is the last card in Luke Cage's kit. We do have 2 copies of the Cruisin' for a Bruisin'. In this kit, we know because the numbering here that says like 9. There is no missing number, so we know this is the last card in his kit that they did reveal here in the live stream. And then finally, 2 more things that like new news that they mentioned here. Let me find the timestamps. And guys, I highly recommend that you watch the live stream for yourself to see like all the information straight from the source. But Tony talked about like his favorite aspect to design Marvel Champions, and it is protection. And he talked a little bit about how he hates chump blocking, which is probably why Fear and Evil deters chump blocking so much, because Tony is the one that doesn't like it, and he usually doesn't include that many allies when he's playing. So like he really liked this archetype that says, why do you not control any allies? Your hero gets +1 defense and gains retaliate 1. So a bunch of cards from Echo's precon deck, protection cards, work off of like having no allies in your deck. It's kind of like a no ally archetype for you to play with. So I think that that's really cool that Tony created this to really fit like more of his playstyle. And he did mention that for this archetype of having no allies, there's no immediate plans to have this in other aspects, like for justice and aggression and leadership. But maybe in the future, it could be something that's down the road. But he said that right now, at least for this wave, protection is the only aspect that has like this type of why you do not control any allies, do X thing or like have X effect. It's only going to be protection, at least for now. And then Aaron also talked about his favorite aspect to design for, and it's actually aggression here. So he likes designing like aggression aspects type of cards. But his favorite card that he designed in Fear and Evil, or a favorite aspect card, is Righteous Purpose. Huge shouts to Aaron because I love this card, and we did a whole live stream talking about every single hero in the game Marvel Champions and how good they would be with Righteous Purpose. I think that this card is so unique for leadership. Basically, each character you control that has exactly 1 hit point remaining gets +2 Thor and +2 attack. This also like incentivizes the player to like not chump block with allies. So you want to use that last activation with the ally. And one thing I really think is so cool with this card is that it works with your heroes too, right? Because it's every character you control, including your actual identity. So you get your identity down to 1 hit point, you get +2 Thor +attack, which I think can be a lot of fun. So I think it's so unique how this card works and can interact with specific characters like heroes, and also with their identity allies, and just in general like aspect card allies in the game too. So yeah, Aaron really likes this card. I like it as well, but he really likes designing aggression cards. And then the last little bit of news here that they talked about in the live stream was for the campaigns, and they weren't able to show off too much stuff during campaigns here. We got 1 campaign card here. So this is a double-sided card. Tony did mention, so we don't know the other side here, but this is the failed side. So basically, I'm really liking how this sounds for a campaign. If you guys know my takes on campaigns and Marvel Champions, I think that PvP is a more fun format. Like the Civil War PvP, I like that more than most campaigns because I think it's a more fun format. For me, I think Marvel Champions is at peak at just like standalone scenarios. Because the campaign stuff often feels tedious, at least just in my personal play experience. But it seems like, and one of my biggest gripes actually I forgot to mention is that I don't like how whenever you do stuff that's good for you, like in a campaign, like when you like, get stuff cleared off that you want to do, you get rewards, but you also always buff up the villain too. Like the next scenario gets stronger as you're doing like stuff that's more difficult to do. And I'm a type of player where I feel like sometimes it de-incentivizes me to actually do that. So like sometimes I'm like I think it's pretty famous for the Sinister Motives campaign. If you clear off your entire rotation track, you get to start off the game with your symbiote suit, but the symbiote suit has a hazard icon. So it can almost be a detriment to have that in play, but also the villain gets super ramped up as well. And the manually in that campaign for the Sinister Motives expansion, they say that as your repetition is better, the villains really want to take you down more, so they're like more gung-ho in wanting to take you down, so obviously they get stronger, which makes sense. But like it's kind of like that for every campaign, which I kind of want to just like get rewards for me, and I want to get punished from the villain if I don't do stuff, you know what I mean? So I feel like this might be a fun way to do that because we have a failed side here, and basically our setup is you do each player a face down encounter card, and in expert mode you do 2 face down encounter cards instead. So like this isn't the most unique type of thing. I've talked about how I don't like just getting extra encounter cards as like a punishment. But I think that it's a cool design if there's a flip side, which Tony did mention that there is, for if you don't fail. So now you're really incentivized to not fail, like whatever mission that you have to do in the previous part of the campaign. Because if you do fail, then you have like this extra 2 encounter cards on expert mode. So yeah, I think that that's a cool thing. I wish we could see what the other side of the card was if you succeed. But yeah, they showed us a little bit of the campaign. They didn't really go too much into it. But yeah, Fear and Evil will be having a campaign, and it did say that you can choose which order of the scenarios that you want to do the campaign in. Except Kingpin must be the last one, obviously. But for other ones, it's a pretty mix and match in how you want to do that. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this campaign. I'm probably gonna take it in the recommended order first. I just see like the regular experience of how it is, but I definitely want to try it out, like mixing and matching which scenarios I face first on it. But yeah, all right, guys, that's basically it here for the recap. Hopefully this is not too long of a video of me just recapping. Let me know down in the comments what you think about these cool new cards, especially these new starring cards that we got, which is really exciting. Yeah, I hope you guys all like this one, and I'll see you guys all in the next video.